Welcome to the SATLUJ News Hour. This is Ginger Jeffries coming to you from the Phoenix desk with the top stories from across the globe. Here are today's headlines. Russia sends a rescue ship to the International Space Station. Tensions are high in the West Bank after deadly Israeli settler rampage. United Kingdom and the European Union strike new Northern Ireland post-Brexit trade deal. Topping our news today, Russia has launched a spacecraft on a rescue mission to return 2 Russian cosmonauts and a NASA astronaut back here to Earth. Their return has been complicated after their original space vehicle was damaged by a mini meteorite while parked at the International Space Station. The uncrewed ship blasted off last Friday for a 2-day trip to the ISS.
A new ride back to Earth for Rubio, Prokopiev, and Patelin takes aim on the International Space Station.
The 3 space travelers arrived at the ISS in September of last year. Originally, they were expected to stay for 6 months, but their craft began leaking coolant in December when a meteorite punctured an external radiator. Officials determined it was too risky to bring the 3 back in their damaged spacecraft. With no coolant, the cabin temperature would spike during the trip back to Earth, potentially damaging computers and other equipment. Also, the crew would be exposed to excessive heat. NASA said the trio would be landing in Kazakhstan and a post-flight analysis would be done by the Russians. Space travel has remained a rare venue of cooperation between Moscow and Washington since the start of the Ukraine war. Tensions rise in the Middle East as Israeli settlers have carried out at least 300 attacks, including shootings and arson, in a rampage through Palestinian villages in the Nablus area of the occupied West Bank. More than 400 Palestinians were injured in the violence. The majority were wounded from tear gas fired by the Israeli army, as well as smoke inhalation from widespread fires. Palestinian media reported stabbings and attacks with metal rods and rocks. The Palestinian Ministry of Health said 1 person was in the hospital after being beaten in the head with a rock, causing fractures to the skull. Another person suffered a beating with a metal rod to the face. Israel deployed hundreds of additional soldiers to the West Bank. At least 30 Palestinian homes and 100 cars were set on fire by the mob. After leaving their war-torn country, Ukrainian refugees in the UK are now on the brink of becoming homeless. According to the United Nations, more than 6 million people have fled Ukraine, making this the largest refugee crisis in Europe since World War II. The British government rolled out 3 visa-based programs for the refugees, allowing them to stay in the country for up to 3 years. Most of the families required sponsorship from a British host. Initially, 200,000 households signed up to house refugees, but now, as inflation soars, many are reluctant to sign up for another 6 months, forcing many to become homeless. Refugees are given access to schools, health care, welfare benefits, and the right to work. However, many report a lack of credit history in the country, and not being fluent in English has created difficulties finding a job or securing their own housing. The United States scrambles to persuade China from providing military aid to Russia, claiming Beijing is considering sending lethal equipment, possibly including drones. The Kremlin refuses to comment on Washington's suggestion, saying all this information has already been refuted by the Chinese side. Russia's former president, Dmitry Medvedev, says continued arms supply to Kyiv risks a global nuclear catastrophe. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says Russia's invasion of Ukraine has triggered the most massive violations of human rights in the world today. He also added that the invasion has unleashed widespread death, destruction, and displacement. His remarks came as the Ukrainian military said Russia launched attacks with exploding drones on several regions of the country. Coming up next, Belarus president to visit China in what's being called a strategic partnership. Stay with us. We'll be right back after the break.
Hello, my name is Jeffries.
Do you ever wonder what's behind the news? What is it that you are not being told? Going behind the news and finding the truth. Let the truth flow. SATLUJ Network. Let the truth flow.
Welcome back. This is the SATLUJ Network from the Phoenix desk. The president of Belarus will be visiting China this week. President Alexander Lukashenko is a close tie of Russian President Vladimir Putin. He also backed Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Of course, Belarus shares a border with Russia and Ukraine. Now, last year, Belarus allowed Russia to use its territory as a launch pad for its attack. Earlier this month, Lukashenko said he was ready to do so again. Belarus is dependent on Russia both politically and financially. Chinese President Xi Jinping referred to his relationship with Belarus as an all-weather strategic partnership. Kyiv has voiced concerns over the past few months that Belarus could join the war on Russia's side, which would then force them to divert troops to defend the north of Ukraine while still waging war with Russia in the east and south. The United Kingdom and the European Union have struck a new post-Brexit deal aimed at resolving their long-running trade dispute over Northern Ireland. The agreement came after high-level talks between the British Prime Minister and the President of the European Commission. The deal seeks to resolve tensions caused by the 2020 post-Brexit arrangements governing Northern Ireland and its open border with EU member state Ireland. Northern Ireland's Democratic Unionist Party has boycotted the region's power-sharing government until the trade agreements are substantially changed. The new agreement is expected to ease physical checks on goods flowing from the UK to Northern Ireland and gives Northern Ireland lawmakers a say over the EU rules it must implement under the terms of Britain's exit from the bloc. A new leader is on the horizon as Nigerian presidential candidate Peter Obi has gotten the most votes in the commercial hub of the Lagos state, which of course houses Africa's biggest city. Obi of the Labour Party got more than 580,000 votes, just ahead of former Lagos Governor Bola Tinubu, who got around 570,000 votes, representing the All Progressiveness Congress Party. Obi's campaign attracted young and urban voters who are fed up with the corruption of traditional politics. It called on voters to reject the two parties that have run Africa's most populous nation for a quarter of a century. Nearly 90 million were eligible to vote in the elections to choose a successor to President Muhammadu Buhari, many hoping for a new leader to tackle insecurity, the economy, and widening poverty. Final tallies for the presidential race could take days. Votes are tallied by hand at local polling stations. The results are then uploaded online to a central database, which is meant to improve transparency. The latest tit for tat in Latin America is Peru's President Dina Boluarte has ordered the definitive removal of the country's ambassador to Mexico. This comes after rebuking Mexico's President Andrés Manuel López Obrador for again voicing his support for her overthrown predecessor. Announcing the ambassador's withdrawal in a televised address, Boluarte said diplomatic relations between Peru and Mexico are formally reduced to the level of chargé d'affaires. The move comes after Obrador said at a news conference Mexico will continue to support Castillo, who was unjustly and illegally removed from office. Obrador, who has been one of Castillo's biggest supporters, along with leftist leaders in Bolivia, Argentina, and Colombia, also referred to the new leader as a fake or false president. Peru had already expelled the Mexican ambassador at the end of December after Mexico granted political asylum to Castillo's wife and 2 sons. Coming up next, North Korea holds meeting on farming amid fears of food shortages. Stay with us. We'll be right back after the break.
Life is not scripted, never foretold. No matter what happens and where it happens, open your eyes and read between the lines. And never stop asking questions or wanting to know more. Discover the unknown. Hear the human story. Be impartial. Be courageous. Find the untold story. And keep the pioneering spirit alive. Committed to truth. SATLUJ Network. Let the truth flow.
Welcome back. This is the SATLUJ Network from the Phoenix desk. Low on food supplies as North Korean leader Kim Jong-un kicked off a ruling party meeting to discuss agricultural improvements. This comes amid outside assessments of a worsening food crisis in the isolated country. State news agency KCNA said the meeting will determine immediate, important tasks on agricultural issues and urgent tasks arising at the present stage of the national economic development. In announcing the gathering, KCNA said it was a very important and urgent task to establish the correct strategy for the development of agriculture. The meeting comes as a South Korean government said its assessments indicate that the food situation in North Korea appears to have deteriorated. Experts say the current food shortages were probably triggered by poor harvests amid extreme weather conditions. Not to mention, they have been made worse by lockdowns and a sharp reduction in trade with China due to the border closures during the COVID-19 pandemic. More shakeups in Turkey as another 5.6 magnitude earthquake has hit the eastern portion of the country. At least 1 person was killed, dozens wounded, and more damaged buildings collapsed. The earthquake became the latest major tremor to rock southern Turkey as the region rebuilds, or at least tries to rebuild, from earlier massive quakes. So far, more than 50,000 people across southern Turkey and northern Syria have died. Turkish President Erdogan acknowledged the shortcomings of his government's response to disasters. The United Nations has said at least 1.5 million people have now been made homeless, with more than 500,000 homes needing to be rebuilt. Nearly 10,000 aftershocks have been reported in that area since February 6. A big announcement out of the United States about the likely origin of the COVID-19 pandemic. According to the U.S. Department of Energy, the virus escaped from a lab in Wuhan, China. The Energy Department oversees many laboratories and came to its conclusion based on new intelligence. The FBI also determined in 2021 the virus came from a lab leak, but said its conclusion was actually based on other reasons than the Energy Department. A spokesman for the Energy Department told American media agencies it continues to support the thorough, careful, and objective work of our intelligence professionals in investigating the origins of COVID-19 as the president directed. The COVID-19 outbreak claimed the lives of more than 6.7 million people worldwide. It's widely understood that the SARS virus that causes COVID-19 originated in China, where the first outbreak occurred. But the exact origin is less certain. China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs pushed back against the new claim when asked about the reporting during a daily briefing.
A lab leak is extremely unlikely. This is an authoritative scientific conclusion that experts from both China and the WHO reached after visiting the relevant laboratory in Wuhan.
Well, history was made at the Screen Actors Guild Awards as the first Asian woman won the award for outstanding performance by a female actor in a leading role. Michelle Yeoh took home the trophy for starring in the film Everything Everywhere All at Once.
And the actor goes to Michelle Yeoh.
She thanked her fellow actors for the honor, saying they're all here because they love what they do. Yeoh also said, "This is not just for me, this is for every little girl that looks like me."
Thank you, thank you. This is not just for me, this is for every little girl that looks like me. Sally Field, you said all the right things because we're here because we love what we do. And we will never stop doing this because we really, really love it.
The award for Everything Everywhere All at Once, well, they had a huge night at the SAG Awards, winning the top award for Outstanding Performance by a Cast in a Motion Picture. The movie has also earned 11 Oscar nominations. Yeoh took home a Golden Globe Award for her performance in the film last month. And those were our top stories for today. Thank you very much for joining us. This is the SATLUJ Network, the news network that lets truth flow. For more information and the full story coverage, head on over to our website, satlujnetwork.com. Of course, we'd love to hear your feedback. Just email us at info@satlujtv.com. We'll see you next time.